Welcome to another divorce planner in conversation with a divorce professional. Today, I'm really excited because it's the first time I get to speak with family law attorney Bill Farias. And I'm excited to kind of dig in with him about when the right time is to speak with a divorce attorney, what to expect. He also specializes in child custody issues. So if you have a question, feel free to drop it in. If you miss any part of this conversation, it will live on my Instagram page, YouTube, as well as on my blog, so you can refer back to it later. Thank you so much to everybody who's joining us. Hey, without further ado, I just want to introduce the audience to who you are a little bit and then dive into a couple of questions that I've prepared. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Let's do it. So I wrote a little something. So Bill is the founder and CEO of Farias Law Firm. It's a Massachusetts-based firm that focuses on divorce, child custody, and a lot of support matters. And I think what's really interesting about your background is that you came to law after having some social work experience, which I can only imagine really benefits the clients that you work with during this time. Having somebody who really understands family dynamics and more interpersonal issues, I can't even imagine what a help that is to people.
I am a managing attorney and we have a couple of associates.
Well, with that, I kind of want to dig into my subject of the week has really been about when the right time is to start meeting with a divorce attorney. And so I'm sure you probably get either consultations or perhaps referrals from past clients for new clients. So if you're thinking about getting a divorce, when, in your professional opinion, is really the best time to start booking consultations?
So I would say that if there is a substantial possibility that you are moving toward divorce, then it makes sense to talk to an attorney, right? Like if you just have a bad day and you get into an argument, you don't need to rush to book a consult. But if you feel like it may be moving toward divorce, then it's something you need to consider. Another factor is where you are on the risk spectrum. So if you are in a very short-term marriage, you don't have children, there's very little in assets that's going to be subject to division, not much of a support issue, then it's not as urgent. But the further down you are on that risk spectrum, longer marriage, children, more on the line, the more it makes sense to err on the side of caution and do the consult, right? Doing the consult does not mean that you are moving forward with a divorce. All it means is that you are getting your questions answered, you are being educated, and that you are prepared in the event you have to go down that road.
I love that answer. You know, I'm always telling people to get prepared. And for anybody joining us, I have a freebie download, 24 questions to ask a divorce attorney or a mediator. It's just a jumping off point to get you thinking about what you should be asking to make the most of your time if you're booking consultations. I know some people offer free consultations. Please ask first. Not everybody does. And you need to kind of be prepared. It could be 5 minutes on the phone. It could be 15 minutes. So just do the legwork in advance and find out. And Bill, what are the best ways actually to find a reputable local family law attorney?
There are a couple of things you can do. Number one, you can ask around if there are attorneys you know and trust, or people you know who have good relationships with attorneys. You can start with that to get some names. You can also do some research online. Just take a look at what people are saying about the law firm, right? You know that nowadays, if people have a bad experience, they're probably going online to tell everyone about it. So I would say take a look at reviews and ask around.
I think that's great. And for people who feel like maybe they don't have the network to be able to reach in and get information, I always am a huge fan of the library. Go to your local librarian. They can pull up local resources in your area as a starting point as well. So look, I think the word drama is usually associated with a split, and that's not always the case. I think that there's this fictionalized version of divorce that exists out there, but I think more often than not, people are really looking for an easy, drama-free experience. What are some ways that they can set a foundation in order to make that a reality?
The number one thing that you can do is to look inward and really just get your mindset right, because that's where it all starts, right? If you are operating out of a lot of emotion, then that has the significant, or carries with it the significant likelihood that you will make poor decisions, that you will do things that will add strain and conflict. So I think the number one thing is to really just step back and refocus on your overall wellness and your mindset, because that's going to put you in a better place to take a look at your circumstances objectively, to no matter what's going on in the marriage, especially if you have children, be kind and be understanding toward the other side. It doesn't mean that you're sacrificing being firm and that you're sacrificing going after what you're entitled to. But if you're in the right frame of mind and you can set aside your emotions and look at things objectively and just be kind and recognize that there's a human being on the other side, that's going to make things so much easier.
I love that advice. You're 100% right. Obviously, there's an emotional side to the divorce process, and then there's a business side. So it really benefits you to separate the two. It's my jam. It's what I talk about all the time. And it really puts you in a position that you can be proactive and not reactive, because the last thing you want to do is have these big, overwhelming feelings really making decisions for you that are going to impact the rest of your life without giving things the proper amount of thought. I'm a huge proponent of, and I work with clients at length about figuring out what their goals and priorities are in advance of the process, at the same time as they're organizing all their essential documents and crunching the numbers of their financial realities, because you want to make sure that you do have a clear North Star that you're kind of like hooking everything to as you move forward. But especially, as you mentioned, if you are in a family dynamic that has children, because you're going to be working with that person until that child is out of the house and beyond. And it behooves you to really want them to succeed, because you want them to be a really good parent. So I think
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you make a great point that being able to dissect the numbers objectively is really important. We've just found that if people are not in the right frame of mind, it becomes more difficult to do that, right? If they're looking at it, if they're looking at the numbers and they're looking at their circumstances through the lens of lack of trust, infidelity, whatever issues happen during the marriage, then it's much more difficult to be objective and to make good decisions.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. But the first step is to be in the right frame of mind to process that information effectively.
I love that. And by the way, as a legal professional, I love that you're leading with that. I think it really speaks to the tone and the tenor of your practice, which I'm all for. So what are some very common mistakes you see people making during divorce that maybe if we talk about it now, we can prevent somebody from going down that path?
Yeah, I think the most common mistake connects to what I was just talking about, which is not doing the work up front to get a grip on emotions. That's where people make the biggest mistakes, right? Whether it's infidelity, whether it's somebody was hiding something, their abuse is very common, unfortunately. And that takes a lot of work to get to the bottom of that and get yourself in the right frame of mind. If you're not doing that, divorce is more complicated and it's more difficult. The other mistake is lack of response or lag time in response. If you're hiring legal professionals to move your case along, to take the right steps for you, you have to also recognize that you are part of that team.
Yes.
And when you are, and we fully recognize that it can be very difficult for people to dive into this subject matter. Some people may not have been involved in the financials, or their financial state is not a very good one. And so they don't want to look at it. They don't want to answer those questions. It's painful to delve into these things. But again, you need to do the work to get yourself into a frame of mind so that you are responsive and that you're helping the firm move the case along. Because it's going to take longer if you're not doing that. It's going to cost you more, because then your firm is having to put things on hold. You might have motions filed by the other side asking for fees. There are sort of transition costs. If a firm has to come off of something they're doing and you're not responding promptly and they're having to come back to it later, it's going to take double the amount of work for them to get back up to speed, get back into a groove. And so just be responsive. Recognize that you are part of the legal team, and as painful as it might be to have to dig into the subject matter, to have to answer these questions, it's part of the process, and you need to do it, and that'll help move your case along efficiently.
Boy, you just really gave a lot of golden nuggets in that I just kind of want to spend a second talking about. First and foremost, I think you're right. Like the financial changes that are a part of the divorce process is incredibly emotionally triggering, right? And so to be able to grab the reins and really assess your financial realities early in the process so that you can project how that's going to change benefits you throughout the divorce. First and foremost, anytime you can turn the lights on and see where all the scary little creatures are, you take care of a lot of anxiety, and then you can plan accordingly. So having an accurate assessment of what your debts are, what your assets are, how much it costs to live your life every month, and then being able to hand that over with ownership and questions to your legal professional just puts you ahead of the game so that you can do exactly what you said, which is activate yourself to be the best advocate and partner in the process. I think you're right. A lot of people waste a lot of money not realizing that they're dragging their heels because they're trying to emotionally avoid something or they're overwhelmed. And the more you can prepare in advance than to bring and activate your team, the less you're going to be spending on somebody saying, I need this, I need this, I need this, and billing you. And also making sure to take care of the emotional side of what you're going through in the proper channel with a therapist, with support, with maybe group therapy, as opposed to dragging your heels and then running up your bills of the divorce process because you're not taking care of that inside stuff that's really going on. I mean, that whole, everything you just talked to us about was like, that's everything. If people just like focus on that advice, they're going to really have a much better time going through the process.
Yeah, and I think what's important is to recognize that it's completely normal to be afraid. And when you are feeling afraid, you are at a crossroads and you have a choice to either bury your head in the sand, and what happens there is the anxiety intensifies and just gets worse. So you can do that, or you can take action and prepare and get educated and communicate with the law firm and move your case along. And that in and of itself will alleviate a lot of the anxiety and actually move your case forward.
Yeah. I think that's fabulous. 100% agree with you. It's everything I'm always like trying to get people to do and I'm coaching clients on. I actually have something I want to ask you a question about that might be out of left field, but it just occurs to me there are so many people who are always trying to kind of cut down on the actual expense of a divorce. I mean, with good reason. You know, the average price of a divorce in this country, in the United States, is $15,000. That's if people are lawyering up and, you know, kind of going at it. Mediation can be a much more budget friendly option for people. And also, just because you have an attorney, you hire an attorney, doesn't mean you're going to, you know, go to court. You can mediate that way as well between both parties if you have that plan, if you know where your priorities are. But I know that there's been a lot over the past 5 years, especially all of these like online divorce services that are popping up. And I just kind of wanted to take a temperature with you. I'm a little hesitant because I feel like if you're not a lawyer, and unless your case is completely, you know, easy and the risks are low, my default is always have a legal professional look through it. But I'm curious to hear, in your professional opinion, or what your colleagues are feeling about this new push towards online divorcing.
This goes back to what I mentioned earlier about the importance of figuring out where you are on the risk spectrum. The farther along the risk spectrum you are, the less sense it makes to dive into something like this without someone advising you. and helping you figure out the best way to approach it. I mean, just think about it. When you have time with your children on the line, when you
Yeah.
have hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on the line, that's not where you want to save money. You want to invest in optimizing your outcome,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't have much on the line, then have at it. And certainly that makes a lot of sense. But the more you have on the line, the more it makes sense to have someone in your corner and at the very least advising you. And that does not mean that you have to go nuclear and that it has to be a full-blown contested divorce. This isn't a binary, it's either uncontested and quick or it's complete chaos and warfare. You can actually have guidance and resolve a case efficiently. But it's important, if you are farther along down that risk spectrum, to actually have someone advising you and helping you figure out how to navigate this.
I think that's 100% bullseye. Completely agree with you. And especially, as you mentioned, when there are children involved, if you're splitting up retirement accounts, if you have assets, if, you can't get a do-over in divorce. You just can't. I mean, you could, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg, and there's no guarantee. So it's definitely, dot your I's and cross your T's the first time around, and don't skimp on the process in order to save $1 when in the long run it's going to bite you in the butt. I totally agree with you.
And I'll add to that, Alex, that I think the mistake a lot of people make is they're in a higher risk situation, and meaning they have more on the line, and they think, okay, let me give this a shot, either on my own or with cheaper representation. Let me try to save some money. And then it goes south. And the way it can go south is that in the process of negotiations or whatever they're doing to try to resolve their case, they create certain expectations in the other side, right? Maybe it didn't go as planned. Maybe the meeting didn't go as planned. And now once you have these expectations set on the other side, it is much more difficult to undo that, right? Once the other side thinks, okay, this is what I'm going to get out of this, this is what I want to get out of this, it's very difficult to undo that. Yeah. So I don't advise just giving it a shot and seeing if you can resolve it and then going to hire a firm to try to undo the mess. Invest early, and that will maximize your chances of getting through it efficiently and getting what you deserve.
I love that answer. And it goes back to what we were talking about at the top, which is take the time to prepare in advance of starting the divorce process. Make sure that you have everything necessary in hand and you are clear on what your goals and your priorities are moving forward, so you don't get sidetracked. I love to say stuff can be replaced, your sanity can't. And this is a prime example of that. And then also it's like, I understand we're all looking to save money at some point. This is not the area to do it. You're going to want to be really driving. Let's not look for coupons on this. It's like trying to get LASIK with a coupon. We don't do it. It's just, it's a hard no.
Not a good idea.
So the Money Talk advisor dropped in, said, really great question. It's like the robo advisors in my field. Thank you for that comment. And then, Ebony Byrne of Liberty Financial Services is here, and she wonders, are there resources that people can access that show where they potentially are on the divorce risk spectrum?
I don't know any resources off the top of my head, but what I would say is the main factors are the length of the marriage. So the longer you're married, usually the more there is on the line.
Yeah.
If you have children, especially younger children, where parenting time or custody and decision-making is going to be an issue. If you have a significant disparity in income between you and your spouse, now you have a potential alimony issue. And then also assets in terms of value. The more you have, the riskier it is. So I would say those are the main factors. So the more of that you have in play and the longer the marriage, the riskier it is.
I love that. And especially if you've taken time away from the workforce to be a primary parent, whether that's mom or dad, that's another situation that really kind of puts you in a volatile position. And speaking of children, I have one more question. I know you've got a case you got to jump to. We talked about you having a heart out. He's busy, you guys. We got lucky today. For people who have children, splitting up kid time after a divorce can be a tough adjustment for everybody, even in the most amicable of situations, right? You're changing what your life looks like. And what should parents be taking into consideration as they figure out like what a good parenting plan will be that works for the whole the family?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is, and this should go without saying, but when people are getting divorced, again, often emotions are running high, and it can be difficult to prioritize the children for some people. But I think you really need to step back and think about what is actually best for the children, not what is best for me, not I want to win this contest and have more parenting time than the other parent just for the sake of winning that battle. But it's really stepping back and asking yourself, what is in the best interest of the child? What's in the best interest of the children? Because it's important to recognize that having two involved parents, of course, assuming they're stable, right, and assuming that they genuinely care about the children, is actually what's best for the children. And so I think obviously, if the other parent has issues, whether it's substance abuse, mental illness, motives that are not consistent with genuinely wanting to take care of the children, that's a different story. But if you have another parent on the other side who's genuinely interested in playing a significant role in the child's life, then you owe it to your child to make an effort to foster that and to try to come to a resolution that actually benefits the child. So don't put yourself before the child.
Yeah.
And then on that note, thinking about availability, right? When are the parents actually available? What does this schedule look like? You sometimes have people battling for all this parenting time, and then they're just having the children with other parties, either friends, family members. They won the custody battle, but did they really? Because now the child is without a parent for chunks of time. So what is the actual availability? And also distance is important. The closer the parents live, the easier it is to share parenting time, right? And that's just that's a matter of minimizing disruption for the children. So the easier it is to exchange the children then the easier it is to set up that kind of parenting plan. So I would say, in a nutshell, try to look at it objectively and figure out what is best for the child, and keeping your ego in check and putting your personal issues with the other parent aside, and then just taking a look at who the child is bonded to, what does the availability look like on a day-to-day basis, what times do you work, when will you actually be there for the child, same for the other parent, and how far apart do you live?
Yeah.
If you want to make a 50-50 type arrangement work, then you want to consider living closer together.
Yeah. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for the detail in your answer. You know what, I always have my clients go through an exercise where I have them print out a monthly schedule, like a monthly calendar, and start playing with what a good parenting split would look like in terms of both parents, what working schedules, the distance they are, the kid activities, just to make sure, because I know people hear all these things like it's a 5-2-5 or it's a 50-50 or whatever. You really have to figure out and tailor your split time to what is actually going to work and benefit the kids first and foremost. Thank you so much, Bill. This has been a fantastic conversation and packed with so much helpful information. For those who joined late, this conversation is going to live on my Instagram page, as well as my YouTube and my blog. So anything you missed, any Q&A with Bill, will be available to you. And I hope this is the first of many conversations, Bill, because I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Alex. I enjoyed it too. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you to everyone who joined us today.